When I teach a class, I like to salute in and start off slow with some warm-up exercises just to get the body relaxed for, getting ready for the jumps and kicks and so forth. When I was a teenager, I grew up in Hamburg, Germany. It got very cold during the wintertime. And I would walk into my dad's class sometimes, and he would salute us in and then say, okay, let's fight. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wait a minute, my body is like cold. I might tear something or whatever. But his reasoning was that in a fight situation, in a street fighting altercation, self-defense, you don't have time to say, oh, whoa, wait a second, I gotta warm up my arms or legs, or I gotta stretch out a little bit. No, you just have to go. So he believed, as I now do, that if you want your body to react and to be able to perform the way you want it to, you have to train it that way all the time, like picking up a glass of water. You don't stretch before you do that. So when you want to be able to kick high or throw a sweep or do this punch, you have to be able to do it when you're cold. You know what I'm saying? So that's what he did. A lot of times we would have training sessions where we came in with our street clothes. I think in most gymnasiums and classes, you come in with very loose-fitting clothing and athletic shoes, and we would come in sometimes with suit and tie and dress shoes on, just to see how different it would feel fighting in different clothing, or environment training. He would take us outside and we would train in the snow, or have a sparring match on the slant of a hill, or on pavement or in sand, just to know, come as close to reality as possible. We would set up little bar situations, bring in actual little tables and chairs into our training area with ashtrays and glasses, and of course we would be careful, as careful as possible, but we would simulate actual situations in real life. And I think as a martial artist, if you want to learn how to work with reality, you have to train like that. We would try to avoid the eye gouges and so forth, but as far as making contact and hitting and with speed, yeah, we did as much as we could without hurting each other. First time I actually saw Sammo Hung in anything was in Enter the Dragon. And back then I thought, that's a big man that moves like a little man. That's pretty awesome. And I've been a fan of his since then, since 1973 when I saw the movie. I am happy and honored to say that I got my ass kicked by Sammo Hung. Right on. I did an episode of Martial Law. I play the lead bad guy, and in the first fight scene I win, and in the second fight scene he destroys me, happily so. Man, he's a great guy, and I'll tell you what, the man is as big as he looks in the movies, but he can move. He's fast, he's strong, he's precise, and he's funny. Jackie Chan was he was huge for me. Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. And even now, when I run on my treadmill over there and stay, try to keep my cardio up, I pop in a Jackie Chan film or a Bruce Lee film, and those guys keep me motivated. I like, is it Snake in Eagle Shadow? That was the first one I saw of Jackie Chan, and that is so vivid in my mind still. And for Bruce Lee, oh boy, I guess, yeah, I would have to say it's Enter the Dragon. I love that opening sequence of Sammo Hung. And I love the sequence with Bob Wall.
A few years after I finished Drive, I went to go see a little movie called Face Off. And a little revelation dawned on me. I've always been a big fan of John Woo, and I've seen a lot of his movies way back from. I think the first one I ever saw of this movie was A Better Tomorrow. I saw it in Chinatown back in the mid-'80s. And the one thing my revelation was that by the time I walked out of Face Off, I was going, oh my God, I cannot believe how much influence John Woo had on me stylistically. In one of my earlier cuts of Drive, I shot a whole bunch of slow motion, which I ended up not using too much of it. But there was all the slow motion, the guys pulling their guns out, and you hear all the, the really heavy subwoofers going, and all the slow motion looks, and the this, and the footsteps, and I felt really bad afterwards, because I felt like, oh my God, I'm just copying this guy, and I wasn't even aware of it. But I guess the upside of, that's kind of a true sign of really admiring somebody's work, to the point where you're imitating it and you don't even know it. So that was a little revelation, and ultimately, I think I've concluded that that was a good thing, as opposed to a bad thing. It's a funny story about working with Masaya Kato. Masaya played the advanced model. When we were doing the fight scenes, he had a relatively small part. I mean, he came on mostly at the end, being Toby's nemesis, like he's the better model. So you got just a glimpse of him throughout the film. But funny thing was when we were shooting his scenes, he would show up and we'd shoot the introduction and we'll shoot a little bit of piece of fight here and piece of fight there. And we'd drag him over to this part of the set and here, do one kick here and one block here, and now go over to this set and do this and that. And by the end, Masaya was coming up to me going, what are you doing? I don't understand this. How come I'm just like doing one kick here and one punch there and one, you know, and he knew we were doubling him in the fight scene, and his character was mostly doing fight scenes, you know. So I said, well, you know, we're kind of just doing some fight stuff. I mean, you know, it's just trust me, it's gonna work fine, you know. And so at the end of the screening, we finally screened it for the first time for him, and he watched it. He came up to me and said, wow, man, you made me look like a Superman. And to this day, a lot of people still can't tell, I mean, that it wasn't him in the fight scenes. Even when I was in Japan at the film festival in Yubari in Japan, a lot of people knew Masaya because he's somewhat of a star over there. He's kind of a heartthrob. And they were all kind of laughing, going, you know, really giggling and chuckling and go, Masaya, did he do his own martial arts? And I go, well, you know, he did some. And they go, wow, we knew it, you know, yeah, we love him, you know, he's great, but we didn't know he did Kung Fu. You know, me being the kind of big fanboy that I am with this kind of movies, I wanted a big ending for this movie. I had dreamt up this huge, in fact, the whole conception of Apollo 14 was an idea that I came up with because there was this rocket at the end, and I wanted the fight to go up this rocket. Originally, rather than being that big hotel-looking gantry-shaped hotel, it was actually like a real gantry. This place, the Apollo 14, was a real high-tech nightclub. And I scouted a location, this sort of a sewage plant that was no longer functioning, but it was brand new. And it had the big tubes I was looking for. It's got the gantries, everything. And we're going to do this just amazing sequence, like a James Bond ending, fighting up this thing. Because the reason is that at the end, when the place blows up and the gantry will actually start to collapse on itself and fall away, and Toby has to get out of there, but he's up the top floor. So he was going to jump to the tip of the rocket, hang on for dear life as this gantry just kind of rips away. But then the second explosion happens that sends the rocket up in the air. He was going to be like, ah, screaming for his life. And as it starts to topple, I want him to do that old Charlie Chaplin gag, you know, where he starts to like run down and sort of even out the gravity as he went down the length of the rocket, which also Jackie Chan did in Project A too. But I just want to do a different take on it because I thought that would just be really fun. But it never happened. We got our budget cut, you know, and it was just one of those unfortunate, like, I can just keep dreaming. Someday I'll get to make a big movie and I can do these big sequences.
The motel sequence, it had to be fairly large. You couldn't do an explosion of that magnitude where you were supposed to be that close to it without it being any smaller than, say, 1/6 scale, which is what we built it at. And at 1/6 scale, that section of the motel came in at about 30 or 40 feet long. It was large. It was hard just to build the thing and then physically get it out there. Then we had to set it up on a platform that was like 3 feet off the ground to blend it in with the background motel behind it. Some of the other problems were that without a lot of money, some of the construction techniques were kind of outdated. We were putting a lot of stuff together with 2x4s and Luan instead of using, you know, balsa wood and the kinds of things that you would normally use to build a model. So the model was heavy. It was really sturdier than it needed to be in places. You know, it was a lot of overkill, but sometimes bigger and heavier is cheaper. So another thing we had to pay a lot of attention to was the detail in the model that would react with the explosion. Like, for example, dust on the parking lot. When you see the explosion, you see a shockwave roll through the parking lot and you see the dust fly up. So there's attention to little things like that. Most people will just build a miniature and then paint it dirty. We actually built a model and then made it dirty. We threw dirt on it, we watered it down, we threw more dirt on it, watered it down some more. As opposed to painting roughed up wood, we would rough up the wood. And we had to pay close attention to things that were going to fly through the air. We didn't put a roof on so much as we laid down foil, like heavy black cinema foil, and then we hand laid on individual roofing tiles, thousands of them, I don't even know how many. And we had 3 or 4 production assistants spending weeks laying these tiles on, so that when you see the explosion in the film, you can see all this stuff flying through the air. You can see the individual ceiling tiles blowing off. You know, a lot of the little things that would react to an explosion, we wanted to make sure they weren't too stiff. Things would really fly and whip around with an explosion of that power. That was one of the things we had to pay attention to. And all that stuff, both the motel and the RV, had to be done in a 1.5-hour window on a weekday afternoon. And we were shooting right next to the Sierra Highway in Lancaster. So we had this very narrow window of opportunity where we had to set up all of our cameras on the RV, 3 cameras on the RV, and then wait. And then as soon as we got the permit and the road closed down, boom, we blew that, grabbed the cameras, ran over to the hotel, or the motel miniature real fast, set up all of our cameras, and then rolled again as quickly as we could. But you know, you gotta give the pyro guys time to do the final load in and arm all this stuff. So I think we were right at the 1.5-hour deadline where they were saying, okay, you gotta let the cars through now, guys. And boom, we blew the motel, and they like let the cars go through immediately. It was that tight of timing. And it had to be that particular time for the sun to be right, you know, and then that was the time they would allow the permit. So it was really tricky. This given the fact that we were originally supposed to shoot the explosion on a Sunday afternoon, and we got rained out. So we had to cover the motel model over with tarps and hold the tarps down with 2x4s for 2 more days and hope that it was okay, hope it didn't get wet, you know, and hope it all held together. But luckily it worked out. When we did the miniature RV explosion, we had 3 cameras on. 3 cameras on the RV, then we put 3 cameras on the motel. And I remember in dailies, we were sitting there and we saw the motel footage and the RV footage together at the same time. And we were watching, one angle of the RV blowing up, another angle of the RV blowing up, and then the dailies ended. I was like, where's the 3rd angle? And everybody said there was no 3rd angle. It's like, no, we had 3 cameras. We had one on it from the front, we had one looking through the back window of the picture vehicle, and there was one right in between, right on the ground, looking right up at the side of the RV. Would have been a close-up shot. You would have seen the side of the RV blowing out right over camera. Nowhere to be found. I talked to the camera people. I looked at all the camera reports. I went through the camera truck myself. I called the film developing house, talked to them, went and talked to all of their people. Gone. I mean, it wasn't even a matter of, oh, well, we screwed up the negative, or sorry, we flashed that in the magazine and it's no good. It just wasn't there. So I don't know if the camera wasn't loaded or if there's a reel of film sitting in a bush somewhere in Lancaster. I don't know what happened, but that take is just gone. Luckily it works the way it's cut in the film, but you can't imagine how frustrating it is to have a piece of film just disappear. Not even a matter if somebody doesn't like it or somebody chooses not to use it, but that you just never see it shot at all.
We have a stunt team called Alpha Stunts, which basically most of the people on the team are Japanese guys from Japan. We have a few American guys. Right now it's about 12 guys in total on the team. And most of the original guys, myself and my senior guy named Tatsuro, and also my junior guy named Yuji, we started Alpha Stunts about 6 years ago. And we all study under the master called Yasuaki Kurata. He's also a known famous action actor in all over Asia. And we started under him about 10, 11 years ago. And we all worked together for him in Japan. Then about 10 years ago, I moved here in the States, tried to establish myself here in the States. And my senior Tatsuro went to Hong Kong and Taiwan to study more on the wire work and cable. And my junior guy Yuji stayed in Japan and he tried to study more Japanese style. So about then 6 years ago, then we all came together here in the States. We joined and tried to decide, okay, we're gonna make this stunt team. You have to create a new style of action, combining American, Japanese, Hong Kong style, all these new things put together to create our own new styles. Then that's how we become a team, and we established Alpha Stunts then. Since when I was little, I was a big fan of watching action movies. And also before even I started watching Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, those movies, I was also into these Japanese hero actions, which is as known as Power Rangers in Western countries. All those series being started in Japan past 25, 30 years. So since when I was a little bitty baby, I grew up watching all those shows every single day. Then I tried to imitate them, try to be like them. But when I was 9 years old, Jackie Chan's movie called Drunken Master. That was the first Jackie Chan movie shown in Japan. I was 9 years old. When I saw that movie, it changed my life. I want to be more involved professionally on the film business, doing the stunts and action sequence. So I started taking karate. Then when I hit the 16, I joined a stunt team called Karate Action Club. And that's how I started out. And Jackie Chan is my god. Because of him, I started out this business. I respect him. I watch his movie every day. I haven't had a chance to meet him yet, but I respect him so much. So I got a lot of influence from his movies and also other Chinese movies. There's a lot of great fight coordinator, action director of Chinese movies. I watch their movies and try to learn their style. But I don't want to make a straight copy from them because I want to make my own system. Because of that, and also I worked in America for a long time, and now I started involve more American styles. It's not so much a physical fighting, but as far as how to set up the gags, combining physical action plus mechanical, like cars and fires and high falls, and anything we can get from America, East meets West, try to combine together. So that my inspiration not just come from Hong Kong movies, but also watch American movies. Or when you're walking down the street, when you see the buildings, oh man, we could do this. When you see the car like this, oh man, we could do this next. You know, all these things, everything I can touch. Even this room, when I see table, sofa, lights, and try to think about all the action stuff. We never really had a big accident because the first thing is that all our stunt team, we work together since we were teenagers, 15, 16s. We start out together, so we know each other's moves. And sometimes, okay, when I ask them to do this reaction, this high fall from the second story, no mat. But only reason I ask him to do it because I know he can do it. I ask him to do, this jump up from trampoline, flip over, hit the metal table, or metal pipe. I ask him to do it because I know he can do it, because I know what he can do, and he knows I'm not gonna ask him anything ridiculous or he's gonna get hurt for sure. But of course there's accidents sometimes, because if you do everything safe, it's not fun for a film. Also ourselves wants to try to challenge every time we do it. So if you do the same thing because we know it's safe, the audience can get boring. So we want to try new thing. If you do this fall from here, maybe next time we go even higher. Maybe even higher. If boom, take a fall, boom. It hurts, but I didn't get hurt. Okay, one more time. Let's go higher. Keep doing it. But we never really had a serious injury on drive. Well, one little accident, Mark DeCasco cut his eyebrow a little bit here. It was just not because of the timing of the miss, but something he kicked off of the guy's hand, bounced off and hit his over here, cut himself. But except that, but when you do a fall, it's gonna knock your breath out. You can't breathe, but you can get back up in second take, third take. We never really had the accident where it went so bad where we had to stop shooting or broken bones and all that stuff.
There was things that happened all the time. It was the raisins. It was one morning, I think I must have been a little late to work, not much, but just a little late to work. So I, jumped in the car and we had to do the big car crash scene where he first jumps in the car with me and we're driving and we smash into another car. Well, I grabbed a banana and some raisins just so I could eat in between takes. I was starving. So I eat the banana and then I'm eating the raisins, one by one in between takes. But in the scene, I have my jacket on and I have my cigarettes, because we're getting ready to get into the scene with the cigarettes. I have my cigarettes in my pocket. So, I go to reach for my cigarettes, which was scripted, and he's got the gun on me. And I reach into my pocket and I pull out and I see just my cigarette, and I looked at it, it was a little box of raisins, a little red box of raisins. Like, oh, no, that's raisins. That's not what I was looking for. And I had to reach again and find them, and then by then, terrible enough, if you look at it closely, you see that I don't even reach into my pocket because I had like 3 boxes of raisins in my pocket, and I put my prop that was supposed to be in my pocket down there on the floor somewhere. So I was like, oh, yeah, here's my cigarette. So yeah, I mean, we just had fun every day. And it's funny because I can't even think of his name, but the guy who directed Rush Hour is Brett Ratner. It's a friend of mine from New York. We're all related. He's a little kid. We used to mush him in the head like Britney mushed Lacey in the head. He's a little pain in the ass. Brett, directing movies now, directing big movies now. Came out to Hollywood, got a real pretty girlfriend. He's directing movies. We love Brett. But when he saw Drive, we were at some screening for another movie, and he was telling me how he was going to do this movie with Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan. I was like, wow. Blah, blah, blah. Then he came out and was finished with it, and we were at a screening for another movie, and he sat there and he was like, I saw this movie you did, this Driven or Drive or something. I was like, yeah. He said, if that movie had come out, we wouldn't be able to put our movie out. The movie I just finished, he loved it that much. I was like, get out of here. He said, man, who did that? I was like, that's my secret. There's Marty Scorsese there. You don't know about him. I mean, that's the response I get from people. One of my biggest influences was Eddie Murphy. When I was 19 and I saw him on Saturday Night Live doing his thing, right then I knew that the level had been raised, and that if we all wanted to get in it, or anybody who wanted to get in the game had to come up there where he had set, he had set the standard. Now, if we're gonna be funny, we're gonna be vomit funny, we're gonna be sick funny. It's gonna be, you have to really bring it. So, yeah, he was the one that made me want to do it also. Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby, those were all foundations. Those were bricks in the foundation that you enjoy and you love. But they didn't take me to a place where it was like, I want to do what he's doing. I wanted to do. I just, I couldn't imagine wanting to do what Bill Cosby did or what Richard Pryor did, because they were like masters. Eddie was more of a young guy. He's like very few years older than me, so I could actually see that. That became obtainable. I was like, oh yeah, well if he can do it, I can do it. Not that I'm just as good, no. I'm just saying that he gave me something to shoot for, something that I could really kind of reach for. We talk about idols, and at the time when I was growing up, Eddie Murphy was later, and he inspired me to want to act and really put my best foot forward. But Bruce Lee, will always be one of the hugest influences on me. Muhammad Ali, Stevie Wonder. Those were people that when I was 8, 9, 10, 11, 13 years old, those were like my idols. Those were like, inspirational beings. When people see this movie and they see that I was in it, they're all jealous. How come they couldn't get down? Why did it never come out? That's the biggest thing is, where did that, and this is people I don't even know. They say, man, I seen you in this movie on HBO, on Showtime, on some cable. Where did it come from? Or when did you do it? It's like, yeah, it's one of those things that happens when everybody comes together for the love of the game, and you put together something that you really think is gonna explode, and sometimes it goes pop, and sometimes it doesn't catch. The right spark is not set to make it catch. And because I thought for sure we were all going to be rich and retire off of this. I really did. I had such a good time working on this movie. I thought, I'm over. Forget about it. I see you guys later. I can sit back and live off the fat little land now.